Now it's time for today's perspective on the programme. And as we said in the news, Donald Trump has delivered that State of the Union speech in the US. And whilst I was off air, one commentary I read calling it a very uniting speech, another calling it a very divisive speech. Of course, the website's headlines I was reading very much dependent on the political persuasion of that particular publication. But let's discuss some of the nitty-gritty, if you like, of the speech. And with me here on set is Kate McKenna, who's from Republicans Overseas, Republicans Abroad here in France. Thanks very much for being with us on the
Thank you for having me.
I mean, first of all, that review of a decisive speech. I mean, Donald Trump urging the Democrats to confront, as he put it, the urgent national crisis of immigration, for example. I mean, Democrats, of course, wouldn't even argue that there is a national crisis. How on earth is Donald Trump really going to get some kind of bipartisan action when really the two societies are just so poles apart on this?
That is the question, but this is not a new issue. Again, this is something that's been happening since 2006 when Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and then Senator Barack Obama voted for a physical barrier along the border between Mexico and the United States. So they saw the urgency then. Why not now? Is it because it's Trump that's, asking for it? That's the question. And when we had the midterm elections, Nancy Pelosi has the opportunity to lead the Democrats to work across the aisle with the president on these sorts of issues, or just to destroy him and make that their main goal. So we see here that they've really kind of dug their heels in and they're not willing to compromise at all.
But for them, I mean, Donald Trump's just going much too far, isn't he?
In what way?
In trying to limit immigration, in putting in those barriers. I mean, we heard from Stacey Abrams saying afterwards in response, I mean, this is an administration that chooses to cage children.
This is not someone that chooses to cage children. The children stay with their parents. But this, again, something that was happening under the Obama administration. Why wasn't anyone, screaming about it back then? This is an issue. It is a crisis. These are people on the border, and we need to have, clear laws, a clear path into the United States and a way about it. He's at least addressing the issue, and that's something the Democrats have not done.
The Democrats, so the numbers coming across are really minimal, and it makes no difference at all, really, to the US.
That the immigration makes no... Well, right now we're dealing with a lot of things that seem to be linked with it. We have sex trafficking that's going rampant, and we have an opioid crisis, which, they are recognizing in the Congress, and they're working together to address those issues, but it is linked to a common thread, and that is the border. So I think the president is just saying, hey, you guys recognized this 10 years ago, 13 years ago, what's changed? Is it just because it's me?
Is the wall really the answer, do you think?
I do think that walls work. I think that the political elite has no problems putting up walls. You can look at the Élysée Palace, a wall. You can look at George Soros' house, a wall. You can look at Obama's house in D.C.,
It's rather a big wall, though, isn't it?
But, and even President Trump has gone from the concrete wall slabs to a different sort of structure. So he's willing to make compromises, and that they've proven that it's safe. The city that's just across El Paso, Texas, there were over 200 murders that in 1 year, and then there's the wall, and then you have El Paso, and there were 17 or 19. So what's the difference? A wall. We have to look at these issues and be clear about it.
Of course, the other issue which sprung out, if you like, over this big debate has been the shutdown, which Donald Trump didn't really mention at all. I mean, there was a sort of slight allusion to it, but of course Stacey Abrams chose to mention that right at the top of what she was saying, accusing Donald Trump of kind of using people as political pawns.
I think that the last shutdown was under Clinton, and that was 21, or the longest one before this one was 21 days, and that was under Clinton. No one talks about that. Sometimes this is something that has to happen. It's unfortunate, but it's being addressed. And President Trump did negotiate. He went to the Democrats and said, "Hey, here's some deals, here's some concessions," and they refused it. So he's a businessman. He's going to get the job done, and he's made promises to the American people, and he's going to do what he needs to do to get that.
I mean, the Democrats, of course, would argue it's all very well to make slight concessions, but when actually your fundamental, I want this money to build the wall, is not going to budge, they feel that they have to push him on that and not accept.
I think, again, the majority of Americans want this wall, and they voted for this wall, and even the Democrats voted for this wall again. And it's just hypocritical that now they're saying, oh, well, we don't want this wall, we're not going to budge, when it definitely was an issue. This was something that President Trump promised back then. This is not a surprise. This has been something that's on his agenda for 2 years now, and it's important that he does address it for the American people. Now, the Democrats have a choice. They can try to work with him on this, or they can continue to just say, he's the enemy, we're going to destroy him, and we'll see what the results are in 2020.
I mean, as you say, he's had 2 years. He may only have 2 years left. Who knows? I mean, is this wall really going to happen? I mean, it obviously keeps being kicked down and down and down the line, if you like.
Well, I think that there were a lot of other important things that were mentioned in the State of the Union other than the wall. Everyone seems to be interested in the wall. Again, this is not anything new for the Americans. This is something that's been in Congress and in debate for over 15 years. This is an issue. The president is addressing it. But I think it's interesting to recognize that he has just soared with the economy, which no one seems to want to recognize. And this is beneficial for everyone. When the tide rises, all the boats rise. No one's talking about his great successes with the economy. No one's talking about the fact that he's addressing the question of life and the recent law that was passed in New York to kill babies at full term, and even in Virginia, when the governor has said, let's even if a baby's born alive, he's addressing issues that affect Americans, and it's more than just the wall.
Let's talk about some of those other issues then. He talked about as well the summit with Kim Jong-un that he's planning to have again in a couple of weeks' time.
Yes.
And a lot of people argue that actually nothing has changed since the one he had back in June, or very little anyway.
Well, I think that there were not any missiles fired, in 15 months. I think that he's coming to the table, and when there's talk, there's hope. So here you have people who are willing to discuss, and he's showing that, he has that prowess and that ability to go and have this sort of discussion with this type of leader. He's
kind of got to get beyond, if you like, what happened last year, because last time was that symbolic moment. It was all about the showmanship of it, I suppose, if you like. But now it's a bit more than that, isn't it?
Well, we did get our men back. There was the remains of the soldiers that we were able to get back. So there's little things that are happening. So I'm not sure what the main goals of this meeting will be yet, but I'm sure that with the president we will see some results.
And he also expressed hope for some peace with the Taliban in Afghanistan, for example.
Well, that's something that we can all hope for. I mean, we're tired of this, and it's been a long time, especially for our military. I
mean, do you think bringing troops back is going to be a vote winner for Donald Trump? He's always talking about doing it in Syria, obviously.
Well, he did try to do it in Syria. Congress had other ideas, but I think that this is something that he has declared that America's role is not to be the policeman in the world, and this is something that the majority of voters in America agree with on both sides of the aisle. I think our men are tired, and we should kind of fight our interior war before we even think about looking outside.
And just time to mention China as well. Obviously, there's been a lot of attention on those trade talks between the US and China. Again, it's still a lot of hope being expressed. They've been going on for quite a long time now, haven't they?
Well, he's only been in office for 2 years, and it takes quite a lot of time to navigate through all that. So again, President Trump is doing a good job. I think we have no reason to doubt that he's going to deliver on what he's promised, as he's done with nearly every other campaign promise.
Kate McKenna, great to have you with us on the programme to respond there from Republicans abroad to what Donald Trump had to say in his State of the Union address. Thanks very much for being with us on the programme.
Thank you.